Join me today as we take a little trip into 1970s horror with the movie Martin. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about a horror movie from the 70s called Martin. This is a movie by George Romero, who, those of you who know much at all about movies, I would hope recognize his name as the man who wrote and directed Night of the Living Dead, as well as 5 sequels to it, I believe. Yes, should be 5 sequels. 2 of them were direct to video. I think it was just 2. Might be a third one I'm totally forgetting. But anyway, in which case it'd be 6 sequels. I think, obviously, Night of the Living Dead put him on the map. I think Dawn of the Dead is the more widely known movie, because it's definitely considered one of those sequels that surpasses the original in a lot of ways. And I think it had a far greater impact on future projects involving zombies, and it's definitely cited as an influence for a lot of things. So, and there's a reason why it's one of the 2 movies that's been remade, the other being the original Night of the Living Dead. I happen to prefer the color version from the 90s. It's nothing against Romero's version, because obviously it's the original, you know, we should pay it, you know, fealty and homage, etc., etc. But I happen to prefer the color version. I think there's some story beats that work out a little bit better in it. But it was made with his blessing by Tom Savini, I believe, special effects guy. We're going to be mentioning him here in a minute. So, what is this movie about? This is a vampire movie. Kind of. I'll elaborate here as I go on. So, this movie came out in 1977. Probably got overshadowed by a little movie you might have heard of, Star Wars: A New Hope. It made some waves at the box office. But yeah, so this movie, the main character is played by John Amplas. This was his first movie. He doesn't have a ton of dialogue, but that's just his character. I don't think it was any kind of issues with him, because the issues where he does have dialogue comes across just fine. He is in other movies, a number of Romero's other movies. He's in Dawn of the Dead as Martinez, which I couldn't single him out for certain, but he would be towards the very beginning of the movie whenever the police raid the apartment complex. Martinez was the person who was leading the people inside the building. I'm just not 100% certain who he was as far as the people that come storming out at the top at the very beginning. I'm pretty sure he'd be one of those guys. And then he's in Day of the Dead as the younger scientist that's working with the guy who's trying to teach, however you want to explain it, one of the zombies named Bub. And if you look there, you know, you can see that by that point, you know, it's not a huge part or anything, but clearly his acting had improved by that point. You know, he didn't have any problem with lines or anything, and so that's why I don't think his lack of lines in this movie was due to him as an actor. I think it's just the way his character was written. Then you have his cousin that he moves in with. And this all takes place in Pittsburgh, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. He's played by Lincoln. I believe it's pronounced Mazel. It's Maazel. He is only in like 3 movies. And I didn't recognize the third one, but the second one is called The Amusement Park. It's another George Romero movie. And it's horrifying for a whole other reason than his other movies. His other movies are like supernatural terror, you know, vampires, zombies. Uh, he's got a number of other movies. It's been a long time since I've seen Monkey Shines, so I honestly don't remember much about it. And other things, you know. Whereas the amusement park, the horror there is getting old, and like losing your mind, coupled with the world just not giving a crap about you at all. They recovered it, and it was on Shudder at least a couple years ago after they had found it and like recovered it and restored it. And yeah, it's a trip. It's, you know, I can't really describe it, but like it is like putting yourself in the position of the old man in that movie is terrifying, and especially since it's all just stuck on a loop. But he's the main character in that, and I found that out when I looked it up. I thought he looked familiar, and because that movie came out that movie was made just a couple years before Martin. So now as far as like, oh, also Tom Savini is in this movie. He is I think a boyfriend. Okay, so Martin, he's from Indianapolis, I believe, and he moves in with his cousin, who's the older man, Kuda. And Kuda, his daughter, lives with him, and it's her boyfriend is Tom Savini. And then also a priest in a couple parts of the movie is George Romero himself. So, and you got, you know, there's a bunch of other bit parts here and there, but I don't really recognize any of the actors. Kind of looked through their filmographies, didn't see anything big. Should have written down his daughter's name. She's in a few other Romero movies. She's in Dawn of the Dead towards the very beginning at the TV station. She's one of the other producers there. George Romero's also there in that scene, by the way. If you watch the movie again anytime soon, he is like the main producer. He's like sitting in a control board. He's got like a pretty noticeable scarf around his neck and kind of a beard. And he, and the odds of you seeing that movie, by the way, this is a little diversion here, have greatly increased now that it's available for digital purchase through Amazon, because there were issues with the rights to the movie. I don't remember who had them, but they were convinced they were either going to be able to do a remake, another remake, or a sequel, or do something special with the distribution rights. So it looks like whatever they were trying to work out, they have finally either relented or they have gotten the deal they want. So so the movie is now available for purchase digitally. Like the physical copies have been available, and like I've got it on DVD. But that was another thing, was re-releases were being held up because of this too. So the disc versions were becoming more and more rare. I think I actually have this movie on VHS tape somewhere. But yeah, so it's now available at least that way. So I'm probably going to end up buying it at some point that way, because it is an excellent movie. It's also, if you look, it's available here on YouTube. And people have taken great pains. Like, I've seen a version of it where they cobbled together the European release, an extended cut, an American version to make like a definitive version of the movie. I don't agree with certain choices that they made, because they chose versions that have different music, and I prefer the music in the American version, but that's just me. The longer takes are nice, but I wish there was, you know, that they'd stuck with the American music. So that's just me. But we're getting very far afield here. Back to this movie. So, what's this all about? Well, Martin is a teenager. I'd say he's a teenager, early 20s, maybe, tops. And his family is convinced that he is a vampire. They're convinced that two other people in their line were born as vampires, and I think they've tried to convince Martin that he's really like a 90-year-old undying vampire. And I believe largely that his family is completely insane, trying to convince him of this. And so I believe as a consequence of that, he now believes that he's a vampire, and so he drinks people's blood. But there's no indication that he is a vampire because he walks around in sunlight. Garlic and crosses don't do a damn thing to him. So, and he oscillates between not believing it and trying to taunt Kuda because they send him to live with Kuda. And Kuda tells him up front that he's going to save his soul and then destroy him. And Kuda's an old man, believes in, the old ways from the old country and all that. So he puts like garlic on his door. And like the first night he's there, Martin just busts down his door and is like, look, the garlic doesn't do anything. Takes a bulb and just bites into it and grabs the cross and puts it right on his head. And he's like, there's no magic. Like, this doesn't exist. Like, this is all baloney. However, he does drink people's blood because like on the train ride there, he kills a woman and drinks her blood. So, so that happens, and he injects women. Well, I think we only see this play out twice. He has, he brings a drug that'll knock him unconscious and injects them. Then he, cuts open their veins and starts drinking their blood. And then as he's there, he works at Kuda's store. And so again, it's just weird things happen in this movie, because Kuda is convinced he's a vampire, but also is like, needs help at the store. So he's going to have him help at the store. And he warned him, like, if he killed anyone, like, drank their blood around there, he was going to destroy him. So as the movie progresses, he meets up with this woman who eventually he realizes that he wants her to sleep with him, and that she wants him to sleep with her. And he's like calling into this late night radio station talking about being a vampire and everything. And he talks about how he never does, he doesn't molest the women whenever he does this, and because he can't bring himself to do it, because he thinks, I think he even talks about how he thinks that's a violation. Killing them and drinking their blood, perfectly okay, but the other, no, that's a bridge too far. And so you have that, but then he realizes that this woman, wants him, and so he sleeps with her, and doesn't quite go the way he expects. Like, once he's done, takes a shower and everything, she's sitting there crying, and but somewhere along the way he finds a potential victim and ends up going to her house, but there's a guy there with her, and so he has to use a lot of the drugs on him, and so he gets him unconscious outside, and he's like, why were you here? You shouldn't have been here. And then just takes a good big stick and just stabs him right in the throat with it once he's unconscious, and starts drinking his blood. And then I don't think he kills the woman, which was probably a mistake, all things considered, because she saw him and recognized him from earlier in the day. So yeah, and then you've got him kind of taunting Kuda. Like, at one point he taunts him outside wearing a cape and fake teeth, and he's trying to tell him, like, look, there's no magic, you believe nonsense, I'm not a vampire. But then, he also, or maybe he thinks he is a vampire, but not like the movies depict, because he keeps telling the guy on the radio, like, it's not like in the movies for this or this or this. And so yeah, there's just a lot of, like, as the movie progresses, there's a lot of shots of like Pittsburgh, and now this is the 70s, and it already looks kind of run down, and you can tell this is the 70s. So, but like I said, there's a lot of long shots, a lot of city of industry and all that kind of stuff. and it looks like it has a lower budget than like Dawn of the Dead, because like a lot of the shots, there's no like steady cam or anything. It looks like someone's just walking around with a camera following people around, so it's bouncing around everywhere. And you know, it looks a little cheaper. It has that look of an old film. You know, it's really hard to describe. You know, modern movies past a certain point, they'll have a very similar look and aesthetic to how like things are framed, and how like the color saturations are all very similar, all very dull, by the way. Whereas this, you know, it's lively in that you can tell this is a real environment, but it's kind of a rundown environment, so it's not like really bright and lively. It's really hard to describe, actually. It's one of those moments where I actually wish I knew more about film and I could use the proper terminology here. But yeah, it's very, you know, you can tell these are real streets somewhere. You know, these are real people probably in the background. It's a real house somewhere. This isn't a set or anything. And yeah, and it's got that look of an older movie. Like even movies in the 80s began to have that sameness to them. And this predates even that. But yeah, so like I said, the movie progresses, and the woman that he's seeing, now this is some spoilers here for towards the end of the movie, for a movie that came out almost 50 years ago. The woman that he's seeing, that he's sleeping with, she ends up killing herself, and like slitting her wrists open. So he's kind of depressed about that. And then Cuda finds out that she killed herself, thinks that Martin did it, and so drives a stake through his heart and kills him. And like that's where the movie ends. So the one person that he definitely didn't kill, that she just offed herself, and Cuda takes him out over it. So yeah, it's just a bizarre movie. You never know if Martin is actually a vampire, and just like the rules are just different, you know. And you know, Cuda takes him out there, but at the same time, like as another vampire movie pointed out, well, a stake to the heart will kill anyone, so that's not really proof that they were a vampire, now is it? But yeah, like I said, just interesting seeing George Romero in not zombie mode. And looking up the information on the Internet Movie Database for this movie, I found out he's got a number of other movies that aren't zombie movies. So, and I haven't seen several of them, so I'm definitely going to check them out. And I'll fill you good folks in on them as I do. So, overall, I like the movie because it's different, it's weird. Not tons of dialogue. You don't know what exactly is happening at various points. So overall, though, I lean towards probably a 7, you know, mainly for the uniqueness factor to it. It's not a very long movie. I think it's like an hour and a half, but you should definitely check it out. I found it on Tubi, which I was really surprised to find it on any streaming service, because I was thinking about some movies I hadn't seen for a while, so I looked it up the other day, and yeah, that's where I found it. So as of this recording, which is late October 2024, it's available on Tubi. I don't believe it's available for purchase on used to be Vudu, now it's Fandango, because that's where I have my digital movies that I've bought. So I don't believe it's available for purchase on there. It might be available for purchase on Amazon Prime as far as a digital copy. If I can find physical copies on there, I'll have an affiliate link down in the description for anyone that wants one of those. I've got it on DVD myself. But, yep, so folks should definitely check that out. Definitely a different kind of horror movie. And I'd say it's worth a watch if you've never seen it. But anyway, that's about all I've got to say. So let me know down in the comments if you've seen this one before. If you haven't, if you plan on checking it out, if you haven't. If you have seen it, what'd you think of it? You know, where did you see it? See it in theaters when it came out? See it on VHS sometime in the 80s? You know, wherever. Just let me know. Share your thoughts. And yeah, that's about all I got to say on that. So like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You know how it goes. Sharing and commenting are the best ways to help us grow the channel, and I appreciate you folks helping with that. And yeah, that's about all I got to say. So we'll see you folks later.